In spite of the fact that a lot is common between the print and the electronic media, the two are distinct from each other. Though the news is same in both the media, but they are distinct in each other. Print media implies permanency, can be referred back repeatedly, and it will. At will we can see, we can even read the newspaper in the evening or whenever we find time, but it's not so with the television. If we are glued to TV only, we can see. So that is the difference he's saying. Television is a fleeting media drawing its strength from its capacity to bring alive an event taking place thousands of miles away. With past technological changes in the last few decades, we have already entered into a new era of information revolution. Information is power now. So writing for newspapers and managing them is considered as journalism. Though there is a clear division of these two jobs now, writing for newspapers and various kinds of journals is called journalism, which is a science and art in itself. So journalism is a science, also it's an art in itself. It is now considered as communication science. So what is journalism? Journalism is a social activity concerned with the dissemination of news and views about the society. Journalism encompasses the publication of news, views on various aspects of human activities in newspapers and periodicals. So modern journalism feeds 6 departments of mass communication, namely newspapers and periodicals, radio, television, web, cinema, advertising, and public relationships. Journalism has become the media for mass communications, all concerned with journalism activities involving writing, preparation, and production of communication messages. And so functions of journalism, if we see, the main function of a journalism is to bring to light to the people what its members feel and think. Modern communication systems reflect the philosophy and achievements of society in all spheres by fast flow and pave the way for homogeneity of culture, not only within its geographical unit, but also beyond. A clever journalist, by his penmanship, creates interest in a day-to-day political happenings. He presents the drab events and incidents in an artistic way, which provides the reader information as well as entertainment. So it has become an infotainment media now. Means information is also an entertainment. So the present day tendency is to achieve all this as quickly and briefly as possible. Information is now flowing fast to the people through various media. Media is known to be playing an effective role not only in informing the people, but also influencing their thinking and shaping their attitude. So the function of journalism are to inform, educate, interpret, mold opinion, enable decision-making, and also entertain the readers or the audience. So journalism has also other functions like political, economic, sensory, record keeping, social, marketplace, and agenda setting. So first comes is a political function. How does a journalism do? It's a political function. The free press carries the obligations of providing the public with the information in order to make decisions, issues concerning governance. The political function of a journalism is to be the watchdog of the government. For example, in the recent general elections in the country, there were many contenders for power. It is the responsibility of the press to analyze the agenda of various political parties in an objective way and keep the reader informed about the views of the contending parties. It's a job of a journalism to try and get information that would be helpful for people to decide who they will vote for. A thorough analysis of various ideologies of political parties will help the readers come to a decision on their own. This is about the political function of a journalism. Next is the economic function. So the economic function of a journalism is to inform the material welfare of humankind, informing about the economic policies of the government, and analyzing them with the help readers decide whether they are going to benefit or loss. Journalism should be up to date with matters that may change society, such as the economy. This function also includes supplying the public with information about products, goods, and services in addition to events. Next is the century function. The century function of a journalism is to keep a watch on an impending event. It may be a natural calamity or a spread of epidemic, a likely war or a drought. Because these situations need to be followed up, journalism should try to keep up with the story as much as they can. The press has to keep an eye on issues such as police brutality, hate groups, the elderly, and what may happen to these groups. Next is a record keeping function. Journalism needs to keep correct records on local, national, and world news. So, the record keeping function of a journalism is to get down the information so they can inform audience about past history. Next is the social function. In years past, news was carried by word of mouth in a community. Now, the press gives information on events going on in a community and around the world. Journalism has to be a watchdog of social environment. So that is a social function of a journalism. And next is a marketplace function. And what it is a forum in which all sorts of ideas can be presented. The public can contact the press with concerns over projects, environmental issues, or any kind of individual concerns. A new product that keeps the households away from toil or medical preparation that may cause injury to the health of the people will be not only interesting to the public, but also forewarn them. Okay. Next is the agenda setting function. The media has the power to dictate what we talk about as individuals and address as a nation. This is supposed to be done objectively. The agenda setting function of journalism has a large influence on audience. In fact, journalism doesn't have to tell an audience what to think, but it could tell an audience what to think about. The mass media are capable of reaching vast, widespread audiences thanks to the fast moving newspaper, radio broadcast, TV telecasts, and celluloid films. A single broadcasting network today can reach millions of people at the same time. The world stands at the threshold of new communication systems, which enable a large number of citizens to regularly and effectively interact with each other. To make full use of interactive information, systems made possible by computer technology, citizens can remain so well informed that they will be able to perform their duty adequately and efficiently and accelerate the process of development in different social fields. This is all about the functions of a journalism. Next comes is the role and a scope of journalism in the Indian context. As you all know, a well-famous saying, the pen is mightier than the sword. So every day, there are several events happening across the world, political, cultural, religious, educational, social, and natural. We come to know about these events sitting in our houses. How is that possible? It is through mass media. It is through mass communication, providing information to a large crowd at the same time. But for this, someone has to collect the information as well as to present it. This is the main aim of journalism. So journalism includes investigating, analyzing, reporting local as well as world events, trends, current affairs, and so on. So media plays a crucial role in shaping a healthy democracy. It is a backbone of a democracy. Media makes us aware of various social, political, economical activities happening around the world. It is a mirror, it is like a mirror which shows us or strives to show us the bare truth and harsh realities of life. The media has undoubtedly evolved to become more active over the Yes, it is through the media that politicians are reminded of their unfulfilled promises at the time of elections. The excessive coverage by TV news channels during elections help people, especially illiterates, in electing the right person to the power. This reminder compels politicians to abide by their promises in order to remain in power. Television and radio have made significant achievements in educating rural illiterate masses and making them aware of all the events that are taking place in their language. That is a local language news and all. Coverage of exploitative malpractices of village heads, money lenders has helped bring stringent action upon them by attracting the government's attention. Media in India, how it is. Media in India, as elsewhere, right from the beginning, challenged the establishment whenever it has gone wrong. The very first newspaper published in India, the Bengal Gazette, started in 1780. James Augustus Hickey was critical of the East Indian Company. Before independence, most of the newspapers, barring a negligible few, fought against British colonialism and lent a helping hand to the national movement. After independence, newspapers are playing a key role in nation building. Though from their perspective, the Indian media has been discharging its duty of educating the people and helping increase the level of awareness of the deprived section of society. With mass communication at disposal, journalism can spread literacy so that citizens can be taught the skills needed in their respective fields of activities. The basic need of developing country is literacy. Literacy is a must if a nation has to aspire for wide participation of all citizens in nation building activities. With the help of a crash program teaching adults to read and expansion of institutions until every child has a school to attend, journalists are trying the audiovisual media overcome the barriers of illiteracy and provide knowledge and awareness about social problems to citizens. Journalism is not just a profession, but a mission for those who want to create awareness among the people. There are numerous laws, but the problem of their implementation is the problem with their implementation. No good law can go waste if the people are aware of their rights, duties, and responsibilities and ask questions. So, Right to Information Act is one such law. Inaduvat and Telugu News Daily is devoting continuously a page every week since 22nd April 2008 to bring awareness among the public about the right to seek information. So journalists have to overcome the traditional reverence of government officials and instead regard them as public servants, accountable to the taxpayers for how they spend government money. This accountability extends even to the poorest citizens. Even a beggar pays taxes. Journalism is a method of inquiry that aims to provide service to the public by dissemination and analysis of news and other information. Journalistic integrity is based on the principles of truth, disclosure, and editorial independence. Journalistic mediums can vary diversely from print publishing to electronic broadcasting and from newspaper to television channels, as well as to the web and to digital technology. In modern society, the news media is the chief purveyor of information and opinion about public affairs. Freedom of a press is a tool that can be used for public good. In some nations, the news media is still controlled by government intervention and is not fully an independent body. The role and status of journalism, along with that of the mass media, has undergone profound changes over the last 2 decades with the advent of digital technology and publications of news on the internet. In fact, actually, ironically, in India, the growth of electronic media has not done much harm to print media. In fact, the print media has registered enormous growth even after the spread of electronic media, that is in India. Egalitarian system. News plays a key role in our lives. It keeps us connected to what is happening around us, to the events that shape our lives and the development that defines the times we live in growing India. News has a golden future as a business, yet India is also on its way to becoming a democratic world power. India adopted democracy in 1947. It chose a egalitarian system that is diametrically opposed to its own stratified past for organizing its society. When adopting such a system, one also adopts its assumptions as they are enfolded into it. One of those is together with the legislative, executive, and judicial powers. Media is called the fourth estate of democracy and is tasked with acting as the people's watchdog. As Amartya Sen's book, The Argumentative Indian, argues, India's intellectual pluralism is breathtaking and rich. In fact, given its vast intellectual traditions and capacities, it might be India's greatest secret weapon. In democracy, journalism has a fundamental role. Give people information that would help them to exercise their citizenship, participate in government decisions. Journalism watches closely the actions of the government to make sure they do their jobs accurately and with honesty. The news presented in mass media will have a direct or indirect influence in the democratic process of society. To fulfill this role, journalism cannot be controlled by the government or manipulated to serve the interests of those in power. Only free and but it is not happening. That is different story. Journalism truly useful for a democracy. Unfortunately, in many countries, free journalism only exists in theory or only illusion. True journalism is everything in truth, but not getting affected or not getting influenced by government and all stuff. In the 1920s, as a modern journalism was just taking form, a writer, Walter Lippmann, and American philosopher, John Dewey, debated over the role of journalism in a democracy. Their different philosophies still characterize a debate over the role of journalism in society and the nationwide. Community journal. What is community journalism? This concept of community journalism is at the center of a new developments in journalism. In this new paradigm, journalists are able to engage citizens and the experts as elites in the proposition and generations of content. While Lippmann journalist philosophy might be more acceptable to government leaders, Dewey's approach is a better descriptive of how many journalists see their role in a society and, in turn, how much of a society expects journalists to function. Corruption-free governance is a basic human right, and the media has a big role to play in helping citizens enforce this right. Delivering the inaugural address at an international conference on media and governance in February 2007, the former Chief Justice of India, J.S. Verma, said that 7 principles of conduct enumerated by the Lord Nelson Committee in England were applicable to anyone in public life, whether they belong to the first, second, or third or fourth estate. Justice Verma said these principles were selflessness, integrity, objectivity, accountability, transparency, honesty, and leadership. However, the excessive influence of the corporate sector on the media is keeping away the concerns of millions of ordinary Indians and is routinely blanked out media. The media's ability to be problem solver dependent on the critical distance it was able to keep from both market and the government. For example, our channels and newspapers have endlessly covered personal news of celebrities like Amitabh Bachchan, but burning issues like suicide of farmers received hardly any attention. India is a society divided by many fault lines. Religion is a major one. Caste is another one that is still prominent, but founding fathers of India put the structure in terms of legislation and constitution into place to make everyone equal, despite the fact that Indian middle class has only emerged recently. The middle class needs to see itself in the context of its position in a poor country and has the responsibility of giving back. This cannot be changed quickly, but the process have been put in place by the founding fathers. It is the responsibility of the Indian middle class and the journalists to aid those processes. Next, the role of journalism, democracy, secularism, and development. Democracy is a system of government in which all the people of the country can vote to elect their representatives. It has to be kept in mind the democracy is not limited to right to vote. It should not only apply the political arena, but to economics, social, cultural spheres also. Indian media that came into existence around the 1780s with the introduction of newspaper has matured by leaps and bounds. It has played a very important role in shaping human minds. Democracy cannot function properly without the press informing the public, exposing the voters to the marketplaces of ideas, and holding public officials accountable. One of the founding fathers of America, the third president of the United States, Thomas Jefferson said, "Were it left to me to decide whether we should have a government without newspaper or newspaper without a government, I should not hesitate a moment to prefer the latter." So that is newspaper without the government. Okay. Founding fathers of independent India like Mahatma Gandhi and Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru, strong advocates of freedom of press. However, they imposed certain criteria. Gandhi looked upon journalism as a means to serve the people. He said in his autobiography, the sole aim of a journalism should be service. The newspaper is a great power, but just as a changed torrent of water submerges the whole countryside and devastates crops, even so an uncontrolled pen serves but to destroy. So if the control is from without, it proves more poisonous than want of control. So it can be profitable only when exercised from within. So journalist should discharge his duties mindfully, bountifully, and in a healthy manner, not getting influenced by the other factors. If he does, then it is like sinking ship and devastating the crops. So, but who should stop those that are useless, and who should be the judge? The useful and the useless must, like good and evil, go on together. The man must make his choice. So both will go hand on hand, and we are the one to choose what you want. Education of the people. It will be pertinent to point out as to what Mahatma Gandhi considered to be the role of newspaper. He wrote, "In my humble opinion, it is wrong to use a newspaper as a means of earning a living." So the journalism profession is a most sanctified profession according to according to the yesteryears and according to the philosophers of the past days. But it is not so now. There are certain spheres of work which are of such consequences and have such bearing on public welfare that to undertake them for earning one's livelihood will defeat the primary aim behind them. So one should pursue this career as not for bread earning, but as like to serve the society, they should pursue it. So newspapers are meant primarily to educate the people. They make the latter familiar with contemporary history. This is a work of no mean responsibility. It is a fact, however, that readers cannot always trust newspapers. Often facts are found to be quite the opposite of what has been reported. If newspaper realized that it was their duty to educate the people, they could not but wait to check the report before publishing it. It is true that often they have to work under difficult conditions. They have to sift the truth from the false in a short time and can only guess the truth. Even then, I'm of the opinion that it is better not to publish a report at all if it has not been found possible to verify. So before publishing any news items, a journalist should cross-check the correctness of the news they are publishing. So Nehru expressed his opinion on Indian press on various occasions. The press, if it wants freedom, which ought to have, must have some balance of mind which is seldom possesses. One cannot have it both ways. Every freedom in this world is limited not so much by law as by circumstance. We do not wish to come in the way of freedom of the press personally, but they may. The press is one of the vital organs of our modern life, especially in a democracy. The press has tremendous power and responsibilities. The press must be respected and it must also have a cooperation. To mind, the freedom of press is not just a slogan from the larger point of view, but it is an essential attribute of the democratic process. So, opinion of Gandhi and Nehru make it clear that though they were strong votaries for the freedom of the press, they expected some self-regulation from the press. Vibrant democracy relies on the pluralistic participation of all sectors of society, including journalists and democracy. Flourishes best when journalists are able to provide civil society with the information they need to formulate informed positions on economic, social, and political matters. And just how the journalists should have checks and balances. In a democratic society, access to free information plays a central role in creating a system of checks and balances, and it's distributing power equally between governments, business, individual, and other social entities. Access to verifiable information gathered by independent media sources, which adhere to journalistic standards, can also be of service to ordinary citizens by empowering them with the tools they need in order to participate in the political process. Media consolidation curtails the freedom of press, but big business sees the media simply as just another way to make money. That's what I told you, no? What is said of journalism is nowhere followed now. The founder of this nation did not protect the press in the constitution because it was a great way to make money. They did it for the role the press plays in a healthy democracy. And at this time, up to people to ensure that the press can perform their intended role. This is all about the democracy, checks and balances. Next is secularism. The issue of secularism is nowadays widely discussed, and it is necessary to understand its real significance in India. Secularism does not mean that one cannot practice one's religion. Secularism means that religion is one's private affair, unconnected with the state, which will have no religion. So state is not having any religions, but that individual has a religion, can be followed out by him without affecting the governance of the state. So secularism in India means equal treatment to all religions by the state. Unlike the Western concept of secularism, which envisions the separation of religion and the state. The concept of secularism in India envisions acceptance of religious laws as binding on the state and equal participation of the state in different religions. With the 42nd Amendment of the Constitution of India enacted in 1976, the preamble of the Constitution asserted that India is a secular nation. However, neither Indian Constitution nor its laws define the relationship between religion and state. The law implicitly requires the state and its institutions to recognize and accept all religions, enforce religious laws instead of parliamentary laws, and respect pluralism. India does not have an official state religion. People of India have freedom of religion, and the state treats all individuals as equal citizens, regardless of their religion. In the matter of law, modern India, however, the applicable code of law is unequal. And India's personal laws on matters such as marriage, divorce, inheritance, alimony varies with an individual's religion. Muslim Indians have Sharia-based Muslim personal law, while Hindus, Christians, Sikhs, and other non-Muslim Indians live under common law. In this connection, it is worth noting that Board of Justice Markande Kajju, Chairman, Press Council of India, Justice Kajju observed, to keep the country together and to take it to the path of progress, the only policy which will work in secularism and giving equal respect to all communities. This way, the path shown by the great Emperor Akbar, who, through his policy of Sulaykh, universal toleration of all religions, gave equal respect to all religions. At the time when Catholics, Protestants were massacring each other in Europe, Akbar was the real creator of modern India, and his policy was followed by Jawaharlal Nehru and his colleagues, who gave us a modern secular constitution that this is what is holding our country together despite all our problems. Development, if we see. The term development journalism was coined in 1968 at the conference of the Press Foundation of Asia in Philippines. Since then, it has become quite popular with devoted and dedicated journalists and professionals dealing with the intricacies. Though the Western nations are skeptical about this process, but growing significance and requirement of such a form of journalism is only making their stand weaker. The approach to journalism emerged out of the dissatisfaction with the dominance of Western news and the communication ideas in developing countries inaccurately covering socio-economic development. There's a real need of reflection on a new type of journalism, especially designed to function in these cultural and political structures. Journalists have to adapt to new ways of covering development issues as being the ears and eyes of society and the voices of the voiceless through bottom-up reporting. Indeed, they acclaimed watchdog role. So journalists are called watchdog and press is a watchdog. So reportage on development issues that bring attention to issues they are overlooked or underrepresented often only raises awareness of problems. Development journalism. Next is 5-year plan. So what is development journalism? Development journalism centers on development issues that determine, hinder, contradict, intervene the development of a nation. Some of the most talked about and frequent concerns are poverty, unemployment, sanitation, health, environment, infrastructure, agriculture, gender issues, road and safety, education, human rights, and labor issues. Media can and must play a significant role in shaping the destiny of the people. It has to create a sense of involvement and spread the realization that the future comes out of present efforts. It will not come overnight. It will come with the effort, okay? So development is nobody's gift. It is a result of one's own labor. So destiny grows out of one's hand rather than descending from above. So development journalism aims at showing the people how to improve their bargaining power with the society. It also describes the processes of change and modernization. The new discoveries and products. An important aspect of development journalism is success stories of people who have adopted new technologies, tried new methods, and benefited themselves and helped society. So communication is life and life is communication, or the vice versa. So all activities of human existence are based on communication. Communication is used for persuasion as well as instruction and entertainment. So communication is a key for a journalist. Okay. Communication plays a major role in a development. Development journalism has been part of the Western journalistic scene for a long time. In India, it gathered prominence in recent years. As India is rapidly becoming a developed country, inevitably, the Indian press has to take note of the process of development and report on it for the instruction of a new class of readers and industrial entrepreneurs. In 5-year plans. Development involves changes and it is of two kinds. One is a natural, while the other is a planned one. So planned development implies and involves economic activities. In the modern context, development can be defined as directed and guided. India, like several other developing nations, began its journey by adopting development planning through 5-year plans. We all know the 5-year plans are there, with which we will go on or changes, or we will just plan how the 5 years plan would be, what are the changes will take place, what modifications will be there. So that is a key thing. what a journalist should have. So socio-economic reporting discussing why, when, where, what, and how of deep structural change in our society. The Planning Commission brings out Yojanas, a journal devoted to development reporting. The other magazines and newspapers report on economic development sporadically. It was only in recent times and development reporting has reached respectable proportions. Two-thirds of the population, two-thirds of the world's population lives in the developing countries. These countries share common problems of poverty, unemployment, underemployment, inequality, and illiteracy. The people of these countries have not been able to attain even a minimum required standard of living. So their economy is mainly agrarian. Most of their workforce is dependent on agriculture. The poor in these countries are concentrated in rural areas. More than half of the population in the third world countries is illiterate. So illiteracy is one of the greatest impediment in the way of development. So education, therefore, is the basic need for development. Hence, advancing the cause of education and literacy also forms part of development journeys. The relevance of communication to the process of education and human development is obvious. Therefore, extending communication in all its varied trends is a priority in any form of social development. On the other hand, mass media provide entertainment and are becoming an addiction with the audience. On the other hand, they offer unprecedented scope for communication, support for education, economic development of the masses that are in need of information and is relevant in nature. For a developing country like India, the communication network has to be widened. This will automatically lead to active participation of the people in the development process. Next is information rich versus information poor. The specific skills required to be a development journalist include excellent communication, to be able to know, understand, comprehend, share, and educate. So is the need of interpersonal skills to be able to empathize and extract the most crucial and hidden truths. One has to have a keen observation power. So journalists, rich information source journalists should have all these required qualities. One has to have a keen observation power, which does not mean only looking out for different news events, but also exploring and exploiting those that are already present. Sometimes the most bitter of truths lie in front of us, and we tend to ignore or overlook them. Being aware of everything is unnecessary. The profession demands considerable amount of travel and expeditions. Different projects every other day. It demands great responsibility. One has to be responsible not only to oneself, but also to the organization one is working for, and that entrusts such dedicated and critical work to the journalists. Responsibility should also be towards the society. Responsible either of the one has to be responsible not only for oneself, but also to the organization one is working for, that entrusts such dedicated and critical work in the journalist. Responsibility should also be towards the society and people who are either the sufferers of the crime or unaware of the existence of serious issues. Only a diligent human being can fit into the shoes of a development journalist. So, and what is development journalist gets remuneration is immense satisfaction, not just the money, but the satisfaction he gets out of giving a truthful news to the society and to his organization. And the pride of being involved in the development of the society by helping in the eradication of the accepted evils. Journalism as a means of communication plays a vital role in democracy, secular, and development. So this is all about the scope of journalism and the principles of the journalism and the functions of journalism and the scope of the journalism. Next, we are moving to the principles of journalism. What are the principles of journalism? Truthfulness, humanness, social responsibility, and social good. So journalism is a vehicle of communication. It deals with public affairs. The main function of a journalism is to bring to light the feelings and thoughts of people. This ever-changing world has been held together through communication between individuals, various sections of the same society, and various societies and nations. Modern communication systems reflect the philosophy and achievements of society and pave the way for homogeneity of culture, not only within its geographic unit, but also beyond. So, journalists collect and disseminate information, as we already discussed this a number of times. But what about the current events? People trend the issues. A clever journalist, by his penmanship, creates interest in a day-to-day happenings, presents drab events and incidents in an artistic way, providing the reader information as well as entertainment. So in a modern times, the horizon of journalism has widened and it has transcended the limits of mere reporting of political and economic news. Modern day newspapers are not only entering into drawing room, but also into your kitchen, bedroom. Journalism now feeds 6 departments of mass communication, like newspapers, periodicals, radio, television, cinema, advertising, and web, which is discussed earlier also. In recent trend, it is also feeding mobile media. Over a period of time, newspapers, magazines emerged as standard means of mass communication. A good part of the 19th century and most part of the 20th century dominated by print media. 20th century also witnessed the rise and fall of radio and emergence of TV and cinema. Present, all this media of communication happily coexist with each other. Okay, so now these days, even the digital and web and internet are also taking more shape. Journalism as information and communication. How does it do? Journalism is not just a tool for communication, it also provides a lot of information to educate and entertain people. Information is power, is a new adage. The main function of journalism is to inform and educate people. What is information? Information helps to gain knowledge. Knowledge is in turn leads to wisdom. Wisdom drives people to come to definition, conclusion that helps decide and action. If information does not enhance knowledge, other developments do not take place. So the entire gamut of print journalism has been completely transformed in its entire gamut. The day of hot wheel are gone. Hand composing, monotype, linotype are all now found in mass media museums. Printing is computer controlled and all process of cutting, binding, packing, loading and computer based everywhere. Technology is leapfrogging and encompassing every single activity of mass communication. It is extremely essential and prudent to take note the negative aspects of technology of media as it appears before us today. As the present and emerging technologies unlock newer and newer benedictions, secrets of humanity, we have to be conscious of the fact that it is technology and an abundance of it that creates fresh demand for excellence on media persons. There are serious questions of cutthroat competition within and without the print, audio, and visual media of mass communication. So technology has made heavy inroads in spheres of journalism too, which contributes and supports the shaping of an age through its information gathering and disseminating functions. This information gathering is no longer the exclusive preserve of human beings. Information dissemination has been almost overtaken by the blending of communication and technology. So how the communication plays? Communication is a fundamental to social beings, both as aspirants and as an agents, and an effective communication is based on knowledge and awareness of society. And world that one inhabits, communication and journalism both revolve around the process of disseminating information to various sources, ranging from an individual to a viewing audience to a large organization. So communication in general is famous on human social interaction skills, including speaking, listening, writing, analyzing, and interpreting, all of which are common among the basic skills needed to produce and distribute information from person to person or from one group to another. Communication is not only covers how people or groups convey information over radio, television, movies, and on the internet, but also focuses on verbal, non-verbal messages across cultural and social situations. Journalists cover individuals, organizations, institutions, governments, businesses, as well as cultural aspects of society, such as arts and entertainment, to inform citizens. News media are the main purveyors of information and opinion about public affairs. So there are many different jobs in journalism. For instance, a news journalist might be involved with researching stories, writing hard news, feature stories, shooting photographs and video, editing stories and checking facts, researching stories. So these types, if we go in details, what is researching stories? Newspapers, magazines, web stories require research before writing. All writers have to conduct research, gather information before they can start writing. Journalists use three tools to gather information for stories. What are the three tools? Observation, interview, and background research. These are researching stories. Next is writing hard news and feature stories. Hard news stories are short, very timely, and focus on telling you what's just happened, starting with the most important thing first. Feature stories, on the other hand, are not as timely, yet need topical news. Newspapers and web features and magazine articles are more in depth and less rigidly structured. They might be interviews, travel reports, profiles, etc. Next is shooting photographs and videos. Photojournalists in print and on the air use still and moving images to tell a story with very few words. Multitasking is more and more as part of life in media, which makes photography a useful skill for writers to have. Next is editing stories. Editors prepare and improve the work of other people. They correct grammar errors, headlines, and make sure the publication has a consistent style. Checking facts. Newspapers rarely employ people to check facts in articles, magazines still do check facts, but it's becoming less common. However, checking facts is a primary duty of a journalism before they disseminate the information. So journalists are various types of journalists are involved. Their profession has so many types in it, like researching stories are one, writing hard news people are some, shooting photographs, some editing stories, and checking facts. Next is the objectivities and its discontents. The greatest power of journalists is in choosing from numerous happenings the information that will be presented to the audience as news. Journalism is expected to be impartial. However, being impartial may not be possible on several occasions because journalists have their limits of perceptions and perspective. Every journalist operates by relying on some often highly personal method of testing and providing information. His own individual discipline of verification, it may be difficult for a journalist to be completely impartial, but he can always be objective in presenting the information as news. The discipline of verification separates journalism from entertainment, propaganda, fiction, or art. Objectivity is a value-free concept, whereas journalist decisions are always a prioritizing of values. When a professional value system is applied to choosing news, it should be assessed on its importance to society. It is imperative to present news in an attractive package because news providers are in commercial competition with one another. The concept of objectivity is not meant to imply the journalists are free of bias. Journalists may be full of bias, often unconsciously, not knowingly, but unconsciously. Objectivity calls for journalists to develop a consistent method of testing information and transparent approach to evidence so that personal and cultural biases will not undermine the accuracy of their work. The ideal of objectivity is central to a journalist's professional perception. Although no one can be value neutral, journalists adopt concepts such as fairness, professional distance, or impartiality. Objective journalists are required to maintain detachment and neutrality towards the object of their reporting, to abandon partials, means biasness and being towards one area, and to maintain strict attachment to accuracy and other truth criteria, such as relevance and completeness. Thus, Operationalization of objectivity often contains elements of factual reporting and may be compromised by incomplete information. Several newspapers conform to the concept of objectivity by distinguishing between news reporting and editorial pieces. Objectivity is often threatened by bias, which is defined as any tendency in a news report to deviate from an accurate, neutral, balanced, impartial representation of a reality of events, social world, according to stated criteria. Critics of the objective norms claim that it serves to hide personal bias, which journalists inescapably include into their writing. So next is truthfulness, humanness, social responsibility, and a social good. So the first obligation of the journalist is to be truth, it should be true. So there is an absolute unanimity and utter confusion in this regard. Everyone agrees journalists must tell the truth. Yet people are baffled about that. The truth means what? Journalists feel that their primary obligation is getting the facts right. They feel that overwhelmingly truth is their primary mission. This desire that information be truthful is fundamental. People use news to learn and think about the world around them. Hence, it should be usable and reliable. People want to know whether it will rain tomorrow, and new education policy evolved by the government is helpful to their children about impending wars, etc. Truthfulness creates the sense of security that grows from awareness, and that is essence of news. The basic desire for truthfulness is powerful and intrinsic. Oppressive societies belittle truthfulness and accuracy. As the modern press evolved with an expansion of democratic values, the promise of being truthful and accurate became a powerful part of journalism. It seems truth is too complicated for us to pursue. We are all subjective individuals, yet everyone in the journalistic process has a role to play in the journey towards truth. Journalists must serve as a protector against debasement of the currency of free expression, resisting efforts by the governments, corporations, litigants, lawyers, or any other newsmakers to mislead or manipulate by labeling lies as truth. And war as peace, journalists must be dogged in their pursuit and disciplined in trying to overcome their own perspective. Journalists must be committed to truth as a first principle and must be loyal to citizens above all, so they are free to pursue it. In order to engage citizens in that research, journalists must apply transparent, systematic method of verification. This is about how first a journalist's basic right is should be truthful. I don't know whether they are now or not, but yes, that is the basic principle. Humanness. Throughout hundreds of years, mankind has come across many ideas and thoughts of the question of humanness. What is humanness? Although the question is still not completely answered, many have become renowned for their interpretation of humanness. This has 5 components. They are physical, intellectual, social, emotional, and spiritual. So each of us can be described in many ways by many characters or qualities, but we are all people first. When describing individual, the fact that we are all people comes first, and then when it is relevant comes as a defining characteristic. Language is the main tool in communication journalism. Language shapes reality. Behavioral changes precedes attitude changes. Behavioral attitudes, the expression towards each other, affect the quality of our lives. We want our attitudes and behavior to convey respect. We are willing to examine ourselves for potentially offensive behaviors. Insensitive terminology is offensive behavior. Journalists are expected to mind their language whenever they communicate. So we should have humanness. Humanness includes what all physical, intellectual, social, and emotional, spiritual thing in mind. But whenever they are writing something, they should have that in mind what they are writing and communicating. So next is a social responsibility. So we make a living by what we get, but we make a life by what we give. As a journalist, said Winston Churchill, media is not only a mirror of society, but also an instrument of social change. Journalists have the power to change the society in whatever ways it be good, bad, or what. So media must take a close look at a society with an eagle eye. Its job is to reflect the aspirations of the people and spread noble ideas. It must expose social evils and help in their eradication. Critically, examining the facts and projecting them in an objective manner without fear or favor in its responsibility. A journalist is a trustee of society and must not betray the trust reposed in him. Journalism is expected to inform and educate society and also act as a medium of communication between various organs of the society, between the governments and the masses and the elected representatives and the voters. News media should be truthful, fair, objective, relevant. They should be free but self-regulated. Media should follow agreed codes of ethics, professional conduct, and socially responsible media also should represent the public, speak in their interest in order to make government accountable. So, however, we are living in the age of information explosion. Electronic media, particularly satellite channels, have completely changed the media scenario. The flood of information has not only changed the psychology of people, but also their approach and lifestyle. So all types of control on the flow of information have been done away with the explosion of information. So the information can be about education, agriculture development, social upliftment, national integration, social and human values, national defense, liberation from poverty, backwardness. The same media can, however, be used to serve vested interests to earn money and property. When we say that this is the age of science and technology, it is imperative to promote scientific temper among the people. Unfortunately, the performance of the media is dismissal in this aspect. In spite of material progress and information explosion, there is no end to conflicts, wars, unrest, exploitation, colonial tendency, and lack of injustice. It is the responsibility of the media to change this trend by using communication information technology in the way that can uplift humanity. Media has to be understood, and the economy and the progress is of the people and for the society, not vice versa. Media should be responsible, answerable to the society. It is agreed that media of the day cannot survive without business model. We have to accept the truth that media has become an industry, unlike other businesses. Media has to discharge its obligations by being responsible to the society apart from doing business. Yes, we are doing it as a business, but also we should be truthful and loyal to a profession. Social good. This is a good service that benefits the largest number of people in the best possible way. Some classic examples are clean air, clean water, literacy. In addition, economic changes include access to services such as healthcare. Information provided by the journalism can bring benefits to society. Media establishments may have become industries, but the journalism is not confined to business. Be sharp. Its purpose goes beyond profit making. It has to preserve the rights and interests of the people. Journalism may furnish information what the readers or audience want. More so, it is a responsibility of the media to supply information what the readers or audience need. Then only the media can protect the public interest. The capitalism-based definition of business based on capitalism states that companies exist only to provide a maximum possible returns to shareholders. This is often not run parallel to serving the common good in ways such as promoting clean air and water, financial independence for all citizens, as corporations focus more on corporate sustainability efforts and social responsibilities. Their business models may expand to include more social good, but in their day-to-day strategies and operations, it's the same way journalism should strive to work for betterment of society. Our media houses have been coming to the aid of the people whenever they are in distress due to natural calamities. They collect funds from the people and help in their hour of need is one way of working towards social good. But the very essence of information that is supplied by the media is to be oriented through social betterment. Next, this is about the social good what the journalists are doing to the society. Next is a comment is free, facts are sacred. So, in this famous article for 5th May, the newspaper is of necessity, something of monopoly, and its first duty is to shun the temptations of monopoly. Its primary office is the gathering of news. At the peril of its soul, it must see that supply is not tainted, neither in what it gives, nor in what it does not give, nor in the mode of presentation must be concluded, face of truth suffer wrong. Comment is free, but facts are sacred. Propaganda, so called, by this means is hateful. The voice of opponents, no less than that of friends, has the right to be heard. Change is the order of the day. Some things stay the same. Our words of the Scott are still relevant despite many changes that have occurred in the arena of journalism. Scott expressed his views in May 1921 in the leading article to mark the centenary of Manchester Guardian. This much quoted essay has endured as the ultimate statement of values for a free press. Scott's words are considered as a blueprint for independent journalism. What do these words really mean? They mean that a newspaper should fulfill a higher function than merely making a profit and should educate, influence, and inform. The newspaper is much more than a business. A commitment to independent journalism means creating the conditions for brave, compassionate, radical, and always independent reporting. Journalists have every right to comment on anything, but they are not supposed to mix comments with facts. Facts and comments are two distinctive features. Making a comment is nothing but expressing an opinion. Journalists are constantly facing the problem of reporting. Facts and opinions. They must be able